Hello and welcome to Chapter 18, our final chapter of the A Plus certification course. All right, so hopefully by the end of this chapter and at the end of this semester, you can review everything and be ready to sit and take the test. All right, there's a lot of good, valuable information in this book. So, all right, so without further ado, let's continue. All right, in this chapter, we're going to talk about quickly about the Mac operating system, the Linux, and we'll briefly just discuss scripting. And I want to make sure, before I forget, even though we're finished with chapter 18 and that's the end of the chapter, I definitely want you to visit the appendix A, B, and C. All right, it's really, they have a lot of good information in there for you to grasp, and will be used on when you're on the field. All right, don't forget to take notes and submit them when you're all done. All right. So let's start. The Mac OS for Macintosh computer was built on a Unix machine. It originated in 1984. Unix is a popular operating system, by the way, and it mostly runs on servers on the internet. So most of the internet servers, Yahoo, and I don't know if it's Yahoo or not, but a lot of the web servers run on Unix. And Unix is a very stable open source operating system as well. We'll discuss a little bit of this when we get to Linux, because Linux is really a version of Unix. All right, let's get to know the desktop for Macs. I would say 60 to 70%, if not more, are Windows operating systems in the field. But Macs are more and more users, especially for the bring your own devices. They have more and more Mac machines coming in, so you probably will end up need to support them as well. All right, so there's the Finder application, which can help you find the applications and data. So please write this down. All right. So the Finder applications can help you find applications and data files. All right. It's always open and active. Also write down that the dock appears on the bottom. This is the dock. Appears on the bottom of the desktop. It contains the shortcut icons to access frequently used applications. All right. So the icons on the dock down here, they present open applications. The open applications in the dock have a little small dot underneath them. Okay, so you'll know that. What else do you need to know? There's the Finder. Now, here's something you're probably going to need. The utility support for Mac. It's in the utility folder. So this is definitely, you need to know. So just write this down. Figure 18-6 on page 991. This is where the utility to support the Mac is located. All right. So if you need, make sure you know how to get there and be able to use it. In there, there is the Launchpad, which is similar to Windows Start menu and Program. Well, it's not in there, but the Launchpad, I guess, will be able to use that. I don't even know if it's there. I'm not a Mac user, so you'll probably notice that by now. Anyway, Launchpad is similar to Windows Start menu and Program features. When you open it, use the dock. You can use it to open it. You can use a gesture. You can have 3 fingers pinched together with your thumb, and it'll open up. All right. What else do you need to know? To quit, just make sure your fingers are opens up with the thumb, and you'll be able to close it. All right. So system preferences. This is something similar to Windows settings. It controls trackpad, iCloud, Time Machine. Time Machine is the one where you configure backup. So please write this down. This is important, I think, because you'll know this is where a lot of the work for you may end up going to in the system preferences, which is the settings. It contains, so write this down. It contains trackpad, iCloud, Time Machine. In parentheses, you can say to configure backups. That's what you use the Time Machine for. user and groups, sharing, network, and Spotlight. If you are having Spotlight is if you are having problems finding a folder, for example, like the search button. That's what the Spotlight is for. All right, so there you go. That's what the Spotlight is. Mission Control gives you a quick view of all open windows and desktops and lets you switch among them. And to open a shortcut, just swipe with 3 or 4 fingers. Okay, Keychain is the Mac OS built-in password manager. All right, to open Keychain, just go to Finder Windows, drill down to the application list, and click on Utilities. You'll be able to do that. That's your Keychain. That's the password manager. All right, in System Preferences, Sharing, click Sharing to open the sharing windows, where you can set up files and folder sharing on the network, printer sharing, remote access, and screen sharing. Sharing works like desktop in Windows. All right, here's a nice feature that I want you to write down: the remote disk. The remote disk gives other Mac computers on the network access to the computer's optical drive, your DVD. Remote disk is especially useful when you need to install software drivers from disks on the Mac that doesn't have an optical drive. Wonderful. So if you're on the network and somebody needs to access your DVD, you can set up remote disk. All right, terminal iOS. So if you go to the terminal, this is like the command prompt in Windows, except the terminal uses Unix commands instead of the old Windows commands. So the commands are not slightly, they are different than the Windows command prompt. All right, so this table, 8.1, it's a good idea to be familiar with the keystrokes. All right, let's talk about maintaining and supporting the Mac OS. To change the settings for automatic updates, open the System Preferences and click Software Update. All right, that's good enough to know. Now, the tools, the drive maintenance tools. Empty the trash. This is a good idea. Okay, so write this down. 7 steps you should do to clean up and maintain your Mac OS. Number 1, empty the trash, free up space, install updates, verify no startup items, remove login items, restart the computer, and uninstall unneeded applications. Pretty much the same thing that you would do on a Windows device. All right, what else do you need to know? Okay, so that's good so far. All right, backup and restore with machine time. We talked about that, so you can use that to back up your system. Okay, drive maintenance tools. Okay, we just finished talking about that. All right. Now, repair disk. So write this down because you're probably going to, if you ever need to do that. The repair disk utility app can be used to repair file system errors and hard drive corruptions. To open the disk utility, open the Finder and navigate to the utility folder. Double-click on the utility in the sidebar and select the hard drive that you want to take care of. The file system, by the way, for the OS is the APFS, Apple File System, is the default file system for solid state hard drives, and it can be used also on magnetics. Mac OS Extended File System is also called the HFS Plus, the Hierarchical File System Plus, is an older file system in Mac's 10.1, the operating system 10.12. And earlier versions that is used proprietary Apple partitioning system. FAT32 and exFAT file system are supported for compatibility with Windows and Linux. So if you have a flash drive that is formatted in FAT32 or exFAT, you'll be able to use them on Macs, but not the ones that with NTFS formatted. So if you have a flash drive that's formatted in NTFS, you're not going to be able to use it on a Mac machine. All right, so that's that. Now, troubleshooting Mac OS and startup. All right, if you look at table 18-2, I think we missed it. They're right here. This is where the keys you need to use to get the Mac startup. So please write that down. Table 18-2 on page 1009 is for keys to access the Mac startup options, such as safe mode, Mac OS recovery, and the startup manager and net boot. If you want to boot to a deployment server on the network to reinstall the Mac OS from a disk image, you will use the Apple technology called NetBoot. All right, so NetBoot is something important to know. NetBoot searches for a disk image stored on a DMG file on the server. A DMG file is a disk image file for a Mac, and is similar to the WIM or ISO files for Windows. In addition to storing clones of the Mac OS, DMG files are often used to hold up installers as are exe files in Windows. Okay. Bootcamp. Okay. Write this down just in case if anybody comes up to you and says to you, can I run Windows on a Mac? Well, you could. You can use Bootcamp, which is an Apple technology that allows you to install and run Windows on a Mac. Just got to put it on a different partition, of course. All right. Let's talk about now. Well, this is it. I know it's a quick introduction to the Mac operating system. And if you own a Mac, you probably know a lot more than you need to know. Here we're just highlighting where you need to go in case you need to troubleshoot, maintain, or upgrade your Mac machine. All right, so now let's talk about the Linux OS. Linux itself is not a complete operating system, by the way. Just gonna it's only a kernel for the OS. You need a shell, where the user can interact with, and an application interface that you need a shell for. So the shell is not there. They just give you the kernel. It's an open system, open source operating system, the kernel itself. And what the manufacturers do is they build, or the distribution, they build the shell along with it. They can vary. So here's in table 18.3 to show you the different distributions of the Linux flavors that they may have. All right. Many distributions of Linux include the GUI shell or desktop, which is called the window manager, such as this, the Ubuntu desktop. All right. Install Ubuntu desktop or Ubuntu server in a VM or on a hard drive, on a CD or a USB drive. When you install Ubuntu or any type of Linux on a CD or flash drive, it is installed. What we call that is a live CD. So please write this down. When you run Linux off a CD or a USB directly without having to install it on the hard drive, it's called a live CD or a live USB. So you can boot up a live version of Linux, complete with the internet access and all the tools you need. But without installing it on the hard drive. You don't even have to install it on the hard drive. All right, I'm going to stop right here, write everything I told you to write up, and we'll finish up on our final video, video 18, part 2. I'll see you. Don't forget to submit whatever I asked you to write. I'll see you in a few.